Good evening, everyone. This is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with the NautilusDryDocks.com. It is Thursday, October the 24th, 2019. It is approximately 6:59 p.m. in the evening, and we're coming to you live from the Nautilus Dry Docks satellite shop, I guess you could say. This is the original shop in my home. Got a great program lined up for all of you. Hopefully you enjoy it. I want to make sure that you understand this is absolutely interactive. So if you are part of the crowd who is joining in there, you have feature questions. Now's your opportunity. If there's ever anything that came across your mind that you were a little bit confused about, you wanted to ask about, I will do my best to fill you in based on haven't been paying attention. I've been doing this since 1999. That was my first RC submarine, and that was a scratch-built Disney Nautilus on 1/32 scale, so it was about 66.5 inches long overall, and that was a 3-year odyssey to get from the initial stages of me not knowing anything to a functional submarine in the water. I want to give a big shout out to Greg Sharp of Deep Sea Designs, who happened to have lived in the same city as me and took me under his wing, taught me a lot. Otherwise, that project never, ever would have come into fruition. So shout out to Greg for all of the help that he gave me. I got a few cool things lined up, and as I usually do, we're going to start out with some project updates. I've been working diligently on that big German Type XXI submarine. So let's see if we can flip this around here really quick. This is her right there, almost 9 feet long, bow to the stern, and for a multitude of reasons, most of them pertaining to my health, this has been much longer than I would ever have hoped for it to have taken. But I've been making some great progress. I don't know if you can see down here in the bottom here, we've got these big openings. That is for a series of custom bow thrusters that I built for this boat. I can show that to you out over here. This is what it looks like. And this is basically, a custom unit that I built. And if you can see that little propeller on the inside, and basically this makes a U. So by going forward and reverse on that big prop in there, you can see this is going to move a ton of water. Basically, this unit the bow thruster will move probably more water than most RC submarines will for their main drive prop. So this is going to be the bow thruster for that big 9-foot boat. Hopefully it'll spin it around nicely. In the background here, you can see custom watertight cylinder that I am in the process of manufacturing. This boat requires 4 liters of ballast. So I've got 2 ballast systems, and the reason for that is that if I can get it working, there is a fully operational periscope system that goes all the way down into the bottom. So all of these raise and lower individually. So it's not like the typical RC submarine where they all come up at once and they all come down at once. These all move up and down sort of individually on their own time. And that is done with a pneumatic system. Let's see if I can pull this off without dropping everything. There you go. It's based off of a series of syringes that you can see there, and it's going to utilize air pressure. So it'll be a pneumatic system. Originally, I was going to go hydraulic, but my preliminary tests actually broke the periscope frame because there was such force that hydraulic system was exerting on those rams, on those cylinders. So that was a rather disappointing afternoon. Pneumatics is a little bit more forgiving, and it makes for a little bit smoother operation and a little easier to implement. So that's why I had to split the ballast tank into two. And again, you want that. So for those of you who are interested in the engineering aspect of RC submarines, part of the reason that we went with these twin tanks separated is that when you do one long tank, your water can slosh forward and backwards. So this would obviously be sitting like this, and imagine it being twice as long. No, this isn't going to sit nicely for me. There we go. Just pretend it's sitting in the right direction. So imagine it being twice as long. Tip it, all the water is going to slosh forward, and that's going to disrupt your center of buoyancy. So that is obviously something that we do not want to do. I had somebody in there saying that should have done piston tanks. Mr. Tiberia seems to know exactly what's going on. Thank you for your input. I'm going to argue with you, though. That would be a massive set of piston tanks, and the larger the surface area that you have engaging the outside ring, the outside perimeter of your ballast tank, the more friction you're going to end up having, the more force is going to be required, the more battery that's going to be drawn. Piston tanks have a lot of advantages. I personally do not feel that they are well suited for large submarine operation. And by large, I'm talking about a 9-foot long RC submarine. Some of the largest piston tank systems that you typically see out there are about 1 liter. I think I've seen up to 1.5 liters. Like I said, there's 2 of these at 2 liters. So probably feasible that they would be able to be constructed, but it would be custom, and it would be a terrible amount of engineering and work to get put together. So I disagree with you. I think this is a better solution. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but this is my channel, so if you don't like it, you can go someplace else. I'm sorry, I'm sounding grumpy. I didn't have any coffee this afternoon. Maybe that's what's going on. Sorry. So that was the Type 21. There's a question about the weight of the boat. The weight of the boat is doesn't mean anything. The only weight variable that is important is the weight above the surface waterline, because that's going to dictate the size of your ballast tank. So in my particular case, the weight of the boat above the surface waterline was 4 kilograms. And the wonder of metric is that 4 kilograms translates precisely to 4 liters. I'm not even going to get into the political thing about that. I wish everybody was on metric, because it would make life so much simpler for everybody. I'm talking metric right now because I'm Canadian, and that's what I tend to revert to. But it's 4 kilograms above the surface waterline, about 8.8 pounds, let's say 9 pounds, rounding above the waterline. So that's what the displacement of your ballast tank is going to need to be in order for that boat to work. So that's a Type 21. Still plugging away at it. Part and parcel of that is the torpedo system. I'm going to get into that in a minute. That boat is going to have a fully functional torpedo system in the bow, and I have not ascertained yet whether it's going to be 2, 4, or 6 operational torpedo tubes. We will get there. David, you've already admitted that you're a caveman. You need to come and get with the times. Metric would just make your life so much easier. All right, next project. Let's talk about this little Foxtrot we got going on here. So I brought this unit to Groton, Connecticut. There's the top of it on the back there. So it's a Russian Foxtrot submarine in 1/72 scale. Originally, this boat had 3 operational propellers in the back, and you can see here this really cool detail. 3 propellers. So the watertight cylinder had 3 motors in it, but unfortunately, upon return to the bench and checking it out in preparation to sending it to the new owner, it was determined that one of the motors ended up as a complete dud. And disassembling the entire rear bulkhead and getting access to it and swapping it all out, especially because everything was all connected together, it was a massive undertaking. So what I elected to do instead was to actually go with a twin shaft setup, and you can see that there right now. I'm just working out the details of it. So the 2 outermost props are actually going to drive this boat. And in Groton, what I actually found out is one of the shafts was actually slipping. This outboard shaft was slipping. It wasn't spinning at all, and the boat still moved exceptionally quickly. So I'm not worried in the slightest about performance of the boat with only 2 screws. Simplifies things a lot. We got more room inside the cylinder there. This is one of David Merriman's SAS semi-aspirated snort systems. You can actually see the float right here for that. This is the snorkel valve that connects to this input for the ballast system. And this is also equipped with a gas backup system in case of emergency, or for, well, actually in case of emergency, because the SAS system has full static diving capabilities. It also has a 3-amp battery and a remote on-off switch. So this is sold. It's going to be going to a new owner here as soon as I get the final preparations done. I don't know if you can see how coordinated I can be with one hand, just to give you an idea what it looks like. I'm just going to set that there. We'll pretend. We'll all pretend like that. We'll go back over here. This was the carry case. You know, and by the way, you would think that a hard-sided case with custom-cut foam would protect the boat from shipping damage. And I am embarrassed to say that is absolutely not the case. Of the boats that I shipped down, all 3 of them ended up damaged coming back from that Groton, Connecticut event. So it did not work out that way. There's the Foxtrot in semi-assembled form. I just set the upper hull on there. It's not secured or anything, but it is a beautiful, beautiful boat. This is an RPMTech kit. For those of you who are interested, RPMTech was helmed by a gentleman by the name of Rick Palumbo, I think was his last name. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. He's an exceptionally talented model maker. I mean, just look at the detail on this boat. Like, it is absolutely incredible. Beautiful layup on the boat as well. But unfortunately, Rick decided to take it upon himself to take a bunch of deposits and take off with them. So if anybody knows where Rick is at, I know there's a large number of people who are looking for him. They put deposits down on boats that never ended up coming into fruition. He did, and someone else can chime in because they may know better than me, but he did the Foxtrot. He did the Kilo. I believe he did a Holland. And I'm not sure if he did another boat or not, but all of them were equally beautiful in terms of design and layup for production. So beautiful boats. It's unfortunate he would have been an asset to the community. Okay, this is a kind of a neat boat. Speaking of Kilo, this is a scratch built hull that I obtained from an individual, and this is going to a new owner as well. They actually did quite a good job. If you take a look at the scribing on the hull, did a really good job, and the layup is really good as well. The upper hull is held in place with magnets, and I'll show that to you. You can see these blue magnets, and it actually does an exceptionally good job of holding the upper hull down to the lower hull. This is the beginnings of a 3-inch subdriver. Again, this is going to be a snort system, a semi-aspirated snort system. That's going to end up driving the boat. And again, the key to this is the snorkel assembly, and you can see it mounted in the sail right there. That's a vertical snort assembly that goes all the way up. So the intake is actually right at the very top of the sail, which is you know, a good thing. So I'm going to get this all finished up and get it trimmed out. We're going to get a new paint job on it, get it out to the owner. Just like all of my other projects, obviously the Foxtrot, the Kilo, those will all have full documentation in terms of a very intensive video blog for anyone who's interested in the final production and to see some footage of it in operation. So that is it for the build updates, except for the bit about the torpedoes. And I suppose what we could probably do is we could jump kind of right into that. Torpedoes, let's see, I'm gonna switch this. You guys are probably, there we go. I'm gonna make you stare at my beautiful mug for a little while. Move this down, there we go. Torpedoes. Probably the most asked for feature in RC submarining. Traditionally, you know, there have been gas-powered torpedoes for you know, a really long time. I would say that you know, to date, I have not seen an exceptionally reliable gas-powered torpedo system to date. More so from the fill perspective and from a leakage perspective. So you can fill them, but if they end up leaking, and so you need to launch them right away, otherwise you get no, you know, kind of juice behind them. Dave Merriman did an exceptionally good job of putting together a 72nd scale torpedo system, and I did a video on that, and if you search my channel you'll be able to see an overview of that system, and I got it right here. This is a 72nd scale weapon. It's probably just a hair under, I'm gonna guess, like a hair under 3/8 of an inch diameter right there. Gas-powered torpedo, and really the secret sauce is the launching mechanism. I'm not going to get into the details of that because I went into the details of that in my other video. What I've been doing, and if you've checked out my previous videos, you'll see that I've successfully built not only gas-powered torpedoes but electric torpedoes. The electric ones were for a big Type 7, and this is sort of the prototype of a second take on it that I was working on. Again, I've got a video on this if you search my channel. The idea behind it being, you've got a reed switch that triggers a timer, and you can select either a 3 or 5 second runtime. Goes back to just an electric motor through a seal, and spins a little prop in the back, and it's got a lithium polymer battery that powers everything. These work really well. The problem with them is they are very complicated to build, and by the time you factor in time, parts and components, they're also exceptionally expensive, which is not necessarily a great thing when you're talking about something that is potentially going to get lost at sea. If you're pointing in the wrong direction, or if it sinks for whatever reason, you don't want to lose $40, $50 every time you shoot one of those. But it is an option, obviously. So what I've been playing around with is revising a gas-powered torpedo system for this big Type 21. And this is going to be, I think, based on my tests, the final solution for this Type 21. This is the prototype, and basically the entire thing is 3D printed with high-strength plastic. And the interior of it, I don't have a cutaway, but with the interior, it's actually built like a pressure vessel. So it's actually, a cylindrical caps on the end of the pressure vessel on the inside, and then a valve, a stem that goes out the back. The secret sauce is really getting the correct orifice size. And I managed to find the correct one actually through looking through different syringes. And that was basically what we ended up with. I got the correct type. I'm going to get into the details about this in the video when I do the final version, but just to let you know, that was the solution that I had, and these work really, really well. By varying the amount of propel of liquid gas that you put in, you can vary the runtime, everything from a second to probably 10 seconds or 15 seconds of thrust. The only downside to these is that you are going to have to offset the buoyancy of these torpedoes when they're launched. It's going to change the trim of the boat once they're launched. But just for fun, let's try something crazy here right now. I'll show you what it looks like to fill and launch one of these torpedoes. Now my launcher is almost done. The prototype pieces are getting finished, but the idea behind it, and this is just really rough and really embarrassing to show you, but you got a seal that fits over the stem just like that, and then just a filler, a tire valve on the back. And all you do is fill this up. We're gonna wait maybe like 10 seconds, because that little orifice does not allow a lot of flow into the weapon. So it takes about 10 or 12 seconds. You can hear now, hopefully, or not hear, more importantly, there's no leak whatsoever. So this is a 1/16 inch seal, again engineered by David Merriman. These are the standard seals for the subdriver. The idea behind this is be in its launch tube, and I don't see where I put it. They're going to be clear plastic tubes when I get these put together. And what will end up happening, the torpedo will just end up getting pushed off, and this is what will end up happening. You can hear that. Still going. Oh, there we go. Still going. So you'll get quite a bit of runtime out of those torpedoes. And again, I think really the whole thing is, the secret to it is just making it reliable and easy to use. So those are going to work out well. If they do, I'll end up putting together a kit that'll have 3D printed bodies, all of the brass tubing, the orifices, the seals, the filler caps, the launcher mechanism, and everything, so that if you want to add the torpedo system to your 32nd scale submarine, you can do that economically. The other cool thing about this is that in theory, the design will also apply itself to 48 scale, obviously to 72nd scale, and I have started playing around with actually 96th scale, and the preliminary findings are pretty heartening thus far. So I think 96 scale is going to be a pretty useful one, because that's what a lot of the boats are built in, especially here in North America. So torpedoes, there you go. That's where I'm currently at with those. Little side note for anybody who's interested, if you want to build electric version of these torpedoes, if you go to the subcommittee forums, there is, if you become a member, a thread in the members section talking about building capacitor powered torpedoes. Don't do it, but they've got the part numbers for the electric motors, which is something that would be probably of interest to you. And I sell the little timer modules. If you go to the electronics section of my website, you can buy those too. And hey, maybe you can find another use for a 3 or 5 second variable timer. Check it out. All right. Let's take a little departure here, a little break. For those of you who were interested or who have been following me for a while, you'll know that obviously one of my goals is to try and make the RC submarine hobby more approachable for people. That's why I've got these 3D files out there for people. You can 3D print your own submarine. That saves you a little bit of money. But part of it actually is running a raffle. And so I by no means come close to breaking even on these typically. But I do it to try and bring more people into the fold of RC submarining. So the next one up, if you go to the homepage of my website, it's on the banner there, or if you scroll down on the bottom, the next RC submarine raffle is currently going on right now. It is going to be, I think there's like 16 days left or 14 days left. $20 a ticket, or for any purchase that you make on the Nautilus dry docks, for every $50 you spend, you get a ticket as well. So the prize package this time around is actually my favorite submarine of all times, is the Disney Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And the cool thing about this particular boat is I have a very in-depth, multi-stage, multi-step walkthrough from beginning to end on how to put this submarine together. And that includes, not only the technical aspects, but the aesthetic aspects of painting and weathering it. So if you're ever interested in your own RC submarine, or in the Nautilus specifically, now is your time. $20 is a small investment. All of the proceeds will help a struggling small business person keep his business afloat. Check it out. That Nautilus, by the way, is exceptionally good performer on and under the water. And the cool thing is, when you're not running it, it makes a beautiful display model as well. So hopefully you check it out. Buy often, buy many, buy lots. It would make me feel better. If you follow my channel as well, or if you carefully peruse my website for new products, you'll see that we launched a new add-on for the VEX radio system. VEX radio. Right here. So 75 megahertz is basically the only game in town for RC submarines in North America. And really, they haven't been in production for like forever. VEX Robotics put out a bunch of these radios, and I managed to get a bunch of them. So we are okay at this particular moment for inventory on 75 megahertz radios. Now, part of the issue, though, is that if you take a look on the back of these units, you got these toggle switches. So by definition, these are momentary 3-way switches on channel 5 and channel 6. All right, so what that basically means is you've got center neutral, which is where basically things stay if you're not pushing any buttons, 100% up, and negative 100% on the other side, and it's momentary. So when you take your finger off, it returns back to neutral. Well, that's great, but what if you got something like a periscope or a torpedo door or something like that, you want it to move into a position and lock just like you have a switch, right? So worked with Kevin McLeod And we came up with a unit that will basically solve this problem. And it's not only useful for the VEX radios, it could be any unit, and it takes any channel and converts it into a switch, basically. And it's either 2, 3, 4, or 5 position switch. So you can set that all up through the programming of it. You can determine where it goes upon power up and all sorts of fun things like that, but it's exceptionally useful, particularly in the 2 and 3-way positions because these are all latching. So it'll vastly improve the functionality of the VEX radios. So really a game changer for our hobby, particularly here in North America. For you guys over in Europe that are utilizing 40 megahertz, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of options for you. That's just the way that it is right now. I'm gonna have to start looking at 2.4 gigahertz and operating at periscope depth, which is exciting, isn't it? But really, just to summarize how those work. So basically, if you had, say, for example, a 3-position switch, if you start at neutral, you push up, it would move to 100% and it would latch. You push down, it would move back to neutral. Push down again, it would move to negative 100. And then back up to neutral again. And you can do that with, again, 2, 3, 4, or 5 different positions. So lots of different opportunities to utilize that. Called the Servo Step Controller. It is on the electronics section of my website. Should be pretty cool. I got 2 more things lined up. And I see, a bunch of chatting kind of going on in the background there. Don't see a lot of questions really, but obviously someone asking where my Noble went. That was a long time ago. I ended up having to sell my Noble. I was ending up working on it more than I was driving it, so that was not exciting. So we ended up selling it. We got a Jaguar F-Type, and then we just sold that, and we got this Jaguar XK-R, which I absolutely love, by the way. We're big Jaguar fans. Right. I want to talk to you a little bit about, let's see here. We're gonna flip things around here. Receivers and receiver wires in a watertight cylinder. Well, this is going to be awful awkward. I'm going to have to stand on this side and work on that side. This is the electronics compartment for the Kilo that I introduced you guys to a little bit earlier. One thing that people have done in the way that these cylinders have been engineered in the past was to actually end up cutting the receiver wire. So if we take a look at this, what it's engineered to look like is it would go like this, and it would attach, you'd cut it, and it would attach to this little stud right here. And then you would take the remainder, well, actually, this is the remainder, and this basically would run on the outside. Now, I've heard mixed results from people basically saying that to introduce a cut into a receiver wire is not ideal. I've actually had no problem doing that in the past, but I've had people who said that they have had problems with that in the past. And so I've elected for all of my builds for the last couple of years not to cut the receiver wire. This is what I do. I'm going to show you. It's really simple, especially with the subdriver units here. So basically, we take our receiver wire. I'm going to have 2 servos in this this section of the watertight cylinder. You can have 3 or potentially even 4, but if you only use 2 or 3, you end up with 1 spare hole here right now. And what I ended up doing is I ended up just drilling this out to accept a piece of tubing that piece of air hose would go onto. And the really cool thing about the seals that David Merriman has built is that no matter what size, even to this size, I don't even know what size this is. This is almost like 1/8 of an inch. You drill it out, and actually the O-ring inside remains intact which is pretty cool, even though it was designed for 1/16 inch seal. This is just a piece of aluminum tubing, and all you do is push this in, and it seals against that rubber O-ring, and then I glue it on the outside edge there. And then you run your receiver wire through that tube and then through a length of this air hose. So this connects to the end of the tube, and then you end up with this long length of air hose that you can stretch out the entire length of your boat. Now, the advantage to this is a couple of things. One, you've got the entire length of your boat. You got your antenna running down the entire length of your boat. You get better signal. Two, you have not cut or screwed around with your receiver wire, so there's no worries about that particular thing. The last thing that's actually really, really cool about it, though, is you end up with a hose that leads directly into your watertight cylinder. So if you take the cap off of the end of it, you got your receiver wire inside, but there's lots of space around the outside of it all the way back to your watertight cylinder. If you dunk your cylinder into tub or a pool and blow into it, you pressurize the cylinder and you can look for bubbles. If you've got a leak in your cylinder, this will find it in seconds. You'll know precisely to the millimeter where your leak is coming from. So a lot of advantages to running your receiver this way. I've talked about it before, but I wanted to show you in this particular case how I did it. Basically, drill through your watertight bulkhead, insert a piece of tubing, run your antenna wire out, run it through this piece of tubing, cap the end, and you're done. And then you've got that test, which you're going to use, I would recommend, before every single run. Take your cylinder, dunk it in the tub, blow for 1 second and see if anything's leaking. It does not take a lot of time, and it could save a ton of headaches at the pond. Little aside, there's different kinds of this. This is manufactured by Clippard. Clippard does a lot of pneumatics, little solenoids and that kind of thing. So this is actually listed out as or on the side as written. It's Clippard air hose. This is white. It also comes in gray. It also comes in clear. And this is a little slap on the wrist for David Merriman. Are you listening, big guy? This clear tubing does not have the same physical properties as the gray and white tubing. Specifically, what I'm referring to is that once this is pressed onto a fitting, the plastic rubber expands, but it does not retract back down again. So what you'll find, I find when I get these particular, you know what? Let's see. This is a brand new unit I just got from Dave. If we pull this off, let's see here. Can you see that? You see how it's like swelled on the end? It's like it's got like a bell on the end of it there. You'll probably be fine, but it doesn't seal as strongly as it did. This stuff here never comes off. If you pull on it, it won't come. You have to cut it typically to get it off of a nipple, or heaven help you, a barbed fitting. So if you're gonna buy this stuff, go with the white or gray. Don't go with the clear. If you've got the clear, just make sure you constantly watch your fittings to make sure that they aren't coming loose, because you do not want to have one of those popping off at 4 feet down in the pond, flooding your cylinder. There you go, Bob's tip for the day. I got one more. I wanted to talk to you about connectors, electrical connectors. Bear with me 1 second. I'm gonna turn the camera, I'll go to my parts bin here, and I'm gonna pull out some various electrical connectors. right. So, there's a few different connectors out there, and I'm going to see if I've still got my Tamiya connectors, because I'll get a new one. There we go. All right. All sorts of electrical connectors. So let's go back in time. I think probably some of the like earliest ones, these are called Tamiya connectors. They're like Satan's gift to the RC model submarine community. They're hard to make up. They're hard to get apart. They're like 2 inches long. They don't make up particularly well, and they tend to come apart all the time. I hate them. You'll find a lot of things, though, when you buy them, come with these connectors on them. These are Tamiya connectors. When I get stuff with these connectors on them, the first thing I do is cut them off and pitch them in the trash. My opinion, take it for what it is. That's the Tamiya connectors. There are basically 2 other connectors that I tend to utilize on a regular basis. One's called the XT60. This is really popular in the drone community. This is what they look like, typically yellow. They go together really, really easily, and they come apart really, really easily. And they make a really solid connection, and I actually love them. Still fairly sizable, though. You can see, I guess it's like about 1 inch by 5/8 of an inch by a little over 1/4 of an inch, 5/16 of an inch, something like that. But they work really, really well. So this is something that I would recommend. It's called XT60. A variation of that is the mini version. I don't know if these are called something different. I actually couldn't tell you, but basically they're just mini versions of the XT60. They're like really tiny. Here's the completely made up connection right there, and I'm going to say that's like 5/8 of an inch, a little over 1/2 inch by 1/4 of an inch by 3/8 of an inch. This is like the mini XT60. I really like these ones too. So I would recommend those as well if you're looking for connectors. The other one that's out there is probably really common. It's called a Dean's connector. Standard ones look like this. You've got a vertical pin and a horizontal pin on each side, male and female. Again, these go together really, really well. They make for a nice solid connection. They're readily available, pretty common on like batteries and that kind of thing when you get them. So that's really good. The thing about all of these is these terminals on the end need to be sealed off with heat shrink when you make them up. One thing that Eric Kloss actually found on Amazon, which I absolutely love, are these variations of them. And this is the like the female side. And then you've got these little covers. So these go over the wires first. You do up your solder, and then these just slip on, and then they click. And then you got completely covered, no heat shrink, no covering, no electrical tape, no nothing like that. Really, really slick. So check Amazon for those. And then of course you've got mini Dean's connectors. So you've got the big version, and then you've got the teeny tiny version. I love these things. 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch by 3/8 of an inch, something like that. So check those out. There's I got all kinds of electrical connectors. Here's another one I really love. So waterproof connectors are actually really, really important too. And you can do lots of things with these, you know, especially if you're running LED lights outside your cylinder, or if you've got a battery located outside, you don't want a waterproof connection to that. And there's a few different kinds. I offer these on my website. These ones just go together. You can see it's got like a seal. This yellow is actually a rubber seal. These go together, click, and that's it. It's a waterproof connection on there. It comes apart really, really easily as well. So there's these ones. And then there's also this variation. I carry a couple of different sizes of these. This particular one is actually a 3-wire version, but kind of a neat variation in that they basically go together like this. There's a compression fitting, that white line you can see right there, and then this goes on, screws down, compresses the seal, and now you've got a waterproof connection in there. And what I typically do, you can see this shoulder right here, I'll actually mount this right in the bulkhead of my watertight cylinder. So this actually just sits right flush with the edge of the watertight cylinder. And then you got your little light output or whatever, just plugs in, screw it down, and you're done. So that's another really cool variation of electrical connector that I have used successfully in the past. That's it. That was a lot. My voice is starting to go hoarse. I'm going to open things up to you guys here for a couple of minutes. See what you guys have to say, and see if you've got any questions. Let's see here. Do pre-missions or die? That was a great comment, Dave. I think that's something that a lot of people like forget about. They just assume that, you know, even sitting on the shelf, the boat remains in a static condition, which is absolutely not the case. You know, things change through temperature and humidity and just age. So like what I told you earlier, you know, taking your assembled watertight cylinder, dropping it in a tub, checking it for you know, leaks and everything is absolutely imperative. You know, bench test every function, make sure that it's going. And the other thing that I'm going to recommend, instead of dumping your boat in the water and taking off, you know, like a missile, I always, you know, keep it really close to shore. I'll run static dive tests up and down a couple of times to make sure that everything is functional before I pull away from shore. Because typically if something is going to go wrong, it will probably have gone wrong when you put it in or during that first cycle. And you want that to be within like reaching distance, not swimming distance of your boat. So pre-mission checks, and equally important, post-mission. You're going to want to, this actually drives me nuts. So, okay, up on my soapbox here for a moment. People are like, oh, well, you know, can I put remote charging terminals on my cylinder so I don't have to disassemble it to charge the batteries? You should be disassembling your cylinder every time you run your boat anyway. Period. If you've got a dry hull boat, if you've got a wet hull boat, you know, cylinders, bayonets, whatever, you should be opening it up and checking for water, and just leave it open for a while. Even if one drip got in there and you don't see it, don't notice it, that humidity can cause corrosion inside your watertight cylinder, because that moisture has nowhere to go but into your electronics and various electrical connections in your watertight cylinder. So open it up, vent it out, make sure that nothing is in there. Little hint, you know, if you ever buy anything from China or whatever, and they got those little silica packs, those desiccant packs, drop one in your watertight cylinder when you store it, and that'll just make sure that all of the air is as dry as possible on the inside, keep everything from corroding on you. Just a little hint on that one too. So yeah, pre and post mission checks. That was good catch there, Dave. Let's see here. Question from Kevin: are you going to finish and sail the Hydra sub? No. The thing that all of you guys need to realize is that just making, inventorying, and shipping parts takes like half of my time. And I've got customer builds lined up to like March, I think. Right now I got like 8 builds or 9 builds lined up right now, which makes my heartburn act up. So the Hydra sub was, basically put together as proof of concept for the 3D files. That's all it was, right? So I know everybody is like, oh, this is all wonderful. I want to see it in the water because I want to be entertained, entertain me. Sorry. Buy the files, build it yourself, and entertain yourself. This particular boat is actually going to the gentleman who owns that Type 21. Marcel is his name. He is a wonderful, very understanding individual who's been very patient with me through all of my health odysseys, getting that boat put together for him. But he's going to buy that as is and where is. Basically, it's ready to go. I think it'll be a great performer. I would love for somebody to post up a video. I would go so far as to say the first person that does that, I'll have something special for them. I will have a very special, extravagant, wonderful gift for the first person to print, assemble, and get operational that Hydra sub. You heard it from me. Go and do it. I'll post up the prize for everybody to see here afterwards. Hold me to it, I promise, but only the first person. And it has to be good too. You don't just like drag it under the water with a fishing line or something stupid like that. I'll beat you. So no, sorry, Hydra sub not going, but it's going to get packed up, shipped off to Canada. Pretty cool. Hey, and on that note too, I am right now finishing up the prototype prints for French. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly. The Redoutable. It's French. It's turning out really good. The more I work on these, the better the files are turning out, and this is turning out to be a really beautiful boat. So French Redoutable is going to be the next batch of 3D files available for download in 96 scale, which is what all these other ones are. But the beauty of 3D printing is you can print them off in whatever scale you want. So if you want a 25-foot long boat, you can just get a really big printer and print it out for yourself. Watch for that in the coming weeks. I've got actually on the printer right now. I've got the bow printing. That's the last section, and then we're on to internal bulkheads, and that's it. Have those files out for you guys to grab, download, play with, have lots of fun with. Let's see. We'll check through. Wow, I missed a lot here. I wonder why my chat isn't playing up here. How much play is okay for control surfaces? Well, I mean, you don't want a lot. You don't want things rattling around. But realistically, before you start seeing any overt effect on the movement of a sub, you're going to have a fairly significant deflection of a control surface. The faster your boat, the less deflection is required to have it change attitude. So if you're talking about a very fast submarine, like a Delphin or an Alpha or an Akula or, something like that, a skipjack that's all jacked up, you're going to want to make sure that you don't have a lot of slop in your linkages. And realistically, there's no excuse for it. The linkages, for all intents and purposes, should be virtually solid. I don't know why you would have slop in there, but you certainly don't want that to be the case. So, yeah, again, faster the boat, the less deflection is needed. When do you sleep? That's been something I struggle with a lot. Yeah, 4 a.m. is when I typically get up. So it makes for some long days, but I'm a morning person. I wake up hungry. I wake up ready to go. Hell, half the time I've been up since 3 or 3:30 thinking through what my day's going to look like or how to engineer this, that, or the other thing. But having said that, I'm also in bed by like 8:30. So it's all just a matter of time, right? Question, the cost of metal props around 4-inch being very expensive. Do you think 3D printed nylon would hold up to stress? Yes. I can say fairly definitively there should be absolutely no problem with a properly engineered 3D file printed in the proper material. I don't know, about, nylon tends, from my experience anyway, on my printer tends to be fairly flexible. I don't know if that's something that you particularly want, although that wouldn't hurt anything, thinking through that. But yes, I think that would absolutely be a viable option. I completely concur that, getting a custom metal prop of like 4-inch diameter is going to be pretty cost prohibitive for a one-off. But when you start talking about the advantages of, 3D printing, that's really when they do come into play. So yeah, I think it would totally be viable. Let's see here. Was I still going to make a smaller Typhoon? So the Typhoon project that I had lined up was 1/100 scale, so it's not that particularly small. I think it's still 68 or 69 inches in overall length. Got it still in the corner there. I showed it to you guys, I think, last time. I haven't had a chance to work on it. Lots of other projects in the wings there going on, and really I'm a little bit hesitant right now because the Engel has a beautiful 1/100 scale Typhoon, which I bought for myself as a present. I've built 3 of them before. Still one of my favorite boats of all time. So I'm a little hesitant to invest all of the time, energy, and resources into a boat that's going to be substantially the same size as an existing offering in the marketplace. So there's a question about kits coming out here in the future. Still working on that 48-inch Disney Nautilus. Production is tricky on that one because of the intricate details, angles, and all of that kind of stuff on that boat. But I do have, and I'm going to have this up probably tomorrow. I can give you, well, yeah, it's not, it's kind of, well, sure, why not? Russia Victor 3. This is the prototype hull right here. And these are the cast resin pieces that go with it. Some of the playing around that I did with, again, 3D printing has a unique prop. This is not the final version. This was just a play. Dave Merriman gave me crap because it wasn't particularly authentic or accurate. But you can see it's like really cool, like a double set of props that go in the back of the boat. The early versions had that, and then the later ones had a more traditional 7-bladed scimitar propeller. But you can see this is the Russian Victor class submarine. This was originally mastered by Tim Cobb. I apologize, the light's terrible. It's like laying on my desk here. It's like embarrassing, but I'll have decent pictures for you guys coming up, and that kit will be available probably tomorrow. Victor 3 is a really cool boat. It kind of looks like Akula, but like Akula's beefier brother, older brother. It's a really cool boat. Check it out. Take a look at it. I'll have that out, probably tomorrow. I got that 1/100 LA that's out there right now. The 3D printed redoubtable that's going to be out there, and then probably realistically the next one that'll be coming out will be 48 scale Type XXI, which is pretty cool. I got that from Precision Pattern Matt Thor, and I believe that was originally think it was a Badgley boat, Doug Badgley. So that'll be coming out, Type 21. That's beautiful. I got both towers for that, the Wilhelm Bauer and the traditional tower for that as well. Let's see here. Telling me you can provide decals. Oh, decals and decals. Stickers. Dry transfers. Yes, I, over on that shelf over there, invested several $100s in a custom dry transfer production setup. So I'm working through the prototyping right now to get the, procedure down to make sure that I can do it properly. But I would say like the next 30 days or so, hopefully I will end up having the capabilities to do custom dry transfers in-house. So if you have a sub that needs dry transfers, waterline markings, or what have you, hopefully we'll have that in place and ready to go. Let's see here. Are you full-time in submarines now? Yes, I am. I am freewheeling without a parachute right now. So that's exciting and scary all at the same time. But as I said, I'm like super busy right now, keeping the fingers crossed. Honestly, not a lot of money in this kind of stuff, or even this kind of stuff. It's the builds that are keeping me afloat, so to speak. But it's going really, really well. So yeah, full time. If you ever want to talk subs, you can give me a shout anytime during the day. The phone number is on the website. Love to hear from you. Let's see here. All right. We're at 1 hour and 2 minutes. We have a ton of people. This is pretty exciting, guys. I appreciate your support. I'm going to cut it off here because I am literally losing my voice, but I appreciate you all stopping in, checking out my channel, seeing what's going up in the shop, taking a look at new products. As always, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, I would love to hear from you. You can email me anytime, bob@rc-sub.com or sales@nautilusdrydocks.com. Go to my website. You can chat with me. There's all sorts of different ways to get in touch with me. But queue up questions. We can talk about it on the live session. So if you got something specific that you want to go into. Oh man, and I apologize. Somebody had actually emailed me and talked about static hovering. I'm going to take 2 minutes and we're going to talk about that. Static hovering for an RC submarine. We're going to take 2.5 minutes. Just because I don't want to let him down. Static hovering in an RC submarine is cool, but it's also kind of useless. Real boats don't statically dive. They don't sit and dive under the water. Doing it with an RC submarine is kind of cool for, bragging rights or to kind of show off a little bit. But realistically, there's not a ton of usefulness. The vast majority of the diving is going to be taking place under power, under speed, and the depth control is going to be maintained by dive planes fore and aft. Static hovering is something that can be achieved basically when your boat becomes perfectly neutrally buoyant. In order to achieve that realistically, you need to have a very precise ballast system. So the likes of OTW's pump-based ballast system or Engel's piston style ballast system are prime candidates to allow static hovering capabilities. One of my favorite videos that I've done, if you search for it, it's called, I think, Nautilus Under the Waves. If you check that one out, I actually have a Disney Nautilus statically hovering and doing a 360-degree turn with its bow thrusters while submerged, stationary. So that is all absolutely feasible. Again, what you need in order to accomplish it is a very precise ballast system and an experienced operator at the controls, because you need to understand if you're moving down or moving up. Angle does have a depth system, a depth keeper in their repertoire, in their boats, that allows static hovering as well. So keep that in mind. If you really want to get crazy, you could take our depth keeper. I would love to try this out. Our depth keeper unit, and hook that up to an electronic speed controller, which is hooked up to a pump, which is in part of your ballast system. And that depth keeper should, in theory, be able to modify the ballast in the ballast system and keep the boat level. Now, I don't know what kind of, variation you're going to end up with, but in theory, it's possible. In theory. So there you go. I touched on it. I did my duty. Want to make sure that we hit on everything that people ask about. I am going to let you go because it's almost my bedtime. Thanks for joining me. Again, my name is Bob Martin, the RCSubGuy with a NautilusDryDocks.com. Be checking in with you guys later. Look for lots of cool new videos coming up in the near future. And again, thanks a lot for your support. We will catch you next time.